All right, it is 7:01. I'd like to call the business meeting to order. May I have roll call, please?
Anderson.
Here.
Delgado.
Here.
Jacobs.
Here.
Larson.
Present.
Levy.
Here.
Miller.
Present.
Wong.
Present.
I have all members present with Jacobs, Delgado, and Levy virtual.
May I have approval of the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. Any questions or discussion regarding the agenda? See none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The agenda is approved, which brings us to the Pledge of Allegiance. The next item on the agenda are announcements. And Vice President Miller will take care of the announcement.
All right, let me just scroll up. All right, our announcements for this evening. Miss Kim Gamble, 9 through 12 physical education and health teacher at Beloit Memorial High School, was named Rotary Teacher of the Month. Woohoo! Miss Gamble has served as department chair of the physical education department and is the head girls volleyball coach. She has been with the school district of Beloit for 12 years. As a physical education and health teacher, Miss Gamble works to create a positive and inclusive learning environment where all students feel valued and are engaged in learning. First-year teacher and 2020 Beloit College graduate Miss Fiona Milkman was interviewed, my daughter's teacher, way to go, was interviewed by NBC 15 Madison on what it is like to be a first-year teacher during a global pandemic and in distance learning. She did an exceptional job articulating the positives of working in our school district. The full interview can be accessed on the homepage of our website and our Facebook page. Thank you so much. The Golf Coaches Association of Wisconsin announced the 2020 Academic All-State Honorees. Congratulations to these BMHS student golf academic athletes on this very prestigious honor: Andrew Badger, Alex Hoy, Tyler Jordan, and Griffith Obernader. I'm sorry if I said your name wrong. These student athletes serve as a great example to others, proving that athletic and academic success are not mutually exclusive. The average GPA of these students statewide is an exceptional 3.717. The school district of Beloit is partnering with the Beloit Public Library to offer students and families some assistance with navigating iPads. On Tuesday, September 22nd, today, and Thursday, September 24th, from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., the school district of Beloit will have a station set up at the library to answer questions and help families learn to use apps on the iPad. We encourage our families and students to stop by for help and information. The school district of Beloit will host a virtual Parent Academy session on Wednesday, September 23rd, beginning at 5:30 p.m. The focus of this informational session will be to discuss and present Seesaw, the learning platform being used by district elementary schools during distance learning. The session is scheduled to last approximately 30 minutes. Please contact your child's elementary school to register for this virtual event and to access the Google Meet link. Speak Up, Speak Out Wisconsin was created by the Wisconsin Department of Justice Office for School Safety, and it is a confidential and comprehensive one-stop place to turn with important concerns. Students, parents, school staff, or any community member can submit a school safety concern or threat, and Resource Center staff work around the clock to respond to tips. We have placed the SUSO link on all of our websites. September is National Suicide Prevention Month, an annual month-long campaign to raise awareness about suicide prevention. reduce stigma around the topic, and encourage those in need to utilize available resources. The school district has provided resources for families and students on our Safe to Learn and district websites. Additionally, we continue to share information on our social media pages. Finally, September 15th is also the kickoff of National Hispanic Heritage Month, which is celebrated through October 15th. Hispanic Heritage Month recognizes and celebrates the contributions Americans tracing their roots to Spain, Mexico, Central America, South America, and the Spanish-speaking nations of the Caribbean who have made a difference and an impact to American society and culture. We will be celebrating this on our social media pages as we highlight and honor local, regional, and national Hispanic role models. And that concludes our announcements for this evening.
Thank you very much, Vice President Miller. Now we're moving on to recognitions.
Good evening, everyone. I'm remote, Monica Christopa here, and I wanted to really accentuate how wonderful it is the people we are recognizing tonight, because we often talk about our community partners, those that we recognize and are grateful for outside of our school district, what they bring to us. But many times there are internal community members that rise to an occasion without any expectation of being recognized or thanked. And that's who I'm going to talk about this evening. Tonight, I would like to recognize a group of these caring and compassionate people, and a huge thank you goes out to them. They are all at McNeil Intermediate School. Police Officer Terry Roden, their student services team of Tim Saha, Jen Nitz, Tiffany Schwein, and Mary Mangera, and our homeless liaison coordinator, Robin Stute. Their principal is here today, Michelle Nora Hendrick, to really talk, to talk about this group. And then at the end, I'd like Melissa Beavers to also say a few words. So, Michelle, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Good evening. Thank you. Good evening. Again, I am the proud principal of McNeil Intermediate School, home of the Lancers. And at our school, we believe it's essential to provide students with the resources that they need in order to be successful with their academics. And so just like any other year, this group of individuals, Saha, Schwinn, Nitz, and Mangera, which is our student services department, along with Robin Stutt, and the man who has the biggest heart in the state of Wisconsin, Officer Terry Roden, came together to provide 192 backpacks and school supplies to our McNeil Lancers this school year. And they were available for pickup, or if we dropped off materials as well. So we're forever grateful for them and their countless time and hours that they put together to get those things together for our families. As they said, they needed them. And then, of course, our school, family, students, and I am tremendously blessed to have them as part of my home of the Lancers. Thank you again.
Would someone from that gracious and wonderful team of coordinators like to speak a little bit to this project?
Sure. Hi, I'm Jennifer Nitz. I'm the school social worker at McNeil. On behalf of the team, we'd like to say thank you for taking the time to honor the work that we do tonight. I'm proud to be part of an amazing team who always comes together to do what's best for our kids. Officer Roden came to me a few weeks ago and said, so we have about 200 kids who need backpacks and supplies. And I said, let me make a call. And so I reached out to Robin Stutt, and literally within hours, we had everything taken care of. So this is just one story among many of the work that happens in our department on a daily basis. Lastly, we just want to thank the individuals and organizations in the community who continue to support the Lancer Closet and donate supplies and other needed items for our students. It truly does take a village, and I think ours is a pretty great one. Thank you.
Melissa Beavers, would you like to add a few comments?
Yes. Hi, everyone. So I would just like to emulate what Michelle said. Just in regards to Terry, Terry is known for being a student-centered, reliable, and always smiling individual within the Lancer community. He builds excellent relationships with students and creates a safe space for them to come check in when and if they need it. I've been able to work with Terry since I came to the school district of Beloit, as I was a teacher at McNeil, and he was the security officer there. The student services team, Robin, Tim, Mary, Tiffany, and Jen, they're the same. Student-centered, family-centered, selfless, and reliable. Even though each one of these individuals each have a very full plate at the moment, they continue to work collaboratively to go above and beyond to provide our students and to provide to our students and families. And this is just a glimpse of what they do, this recognition. It truly is impressive and certainly makes me Beloit proud. Terry, Robin, Tim, Mary, Tiffany, and Jen, you have made a valuable contribution to ensure that these students have the tools needed in order to be successful in school. I appreciate each one of you. Thank you so much for what you have done.
Thank you to everyone for your comments. I'm going to give you a little round of applause. If we could have our mics off, just thank you very much. Because of you, our students are able to succeed. So thank you all very, very much. Now what I'd like to do is introduce a video that Michelle put together that's recognizing our staff with 10 to 45 years of service and commitment to our school district. We want to thank them for their dedication and passion to not only our students, but our school, their peers, and actually the entire community. These individuals are inspirational leaders committed to our district and our mission of serving children. So again, Michelle, I'll turn it over to you and let you run the video you've prepared.
Right. Thank you very much. What a wonderful video, and I wish that we were able to celebrate those years of service in person. A lot of phenomenal people on that screen. One of the biggest assets of our district is our staff, who continuously go above and beyond to meet the needs of our students and our community. So thank you again for all the years of service to the district. The next agenda item is public comment. Board Secretary, do we have any public comment? We have one. Citizens are welcome to attend all open meetings of the Board of Education. Robert's Rules of Order will be followed at all times. Persons attending board meetings are expected to conduct themselves in a respectful and courteous manner that models appropriate behavior for our students. Persons wishing to comment are expected to comply with the following norms in order to maintain a respectful and ordered meeting and to protect all persons, including members of the public, district employees, and district students from personal attacks or discussion of confidential matters in a public forum. Comments should be directed to members of the Board of Education and not district employees, students, or other members of the public in attendance at the meeting. Comments that attack any individual personally or professionally are derogatory or demean others will not be tolerated. Personnel matters or concerns regarding specific district personnel are not appropriate topics to be addressed during an open meeting and should be handled in accordance with district policy and procedures. Concerns or questions regarding students will not be allowed. Comments regarding another individual's membership in a legally protected class, i.e. race, sexual orientation, religion, etc., is strictly prohibited. Response from the board will be limited to clarifying inaccurate information, seeking additional information from the citizen, or acknowledging that the citizen has been understood. The board will not debate with the citizen, and the board will not take action on an item raised during public comment that is not on the meeting notice or agenda. The chair will interrupt and rule a citizen who violates any of these norms out of order. If ruled out of order by the chair, the person's opportunity to address the board will end immediately and the microphone will be turned off. A citizen who violates these norms may be restricted from making public comments at future meetings. Thank you for your participation and courtesy.
I have a comment to read from Lisa Anderson Levy at 723 Church Street. And if necessary, if it goes beyond 3 minutes, I do have 2 other people that have waived their 3 minutes for her or yielded their time for her. As citizens, we vote for local officials to represent our perspectives because as individuals, we are not always able to represent ourselves. When community members run for public office, they vow to represent all of our perspectives, not just those of their closest associates or fundraisers. They make this promise to us, their communities, when they are elected. According to state statute, the Beloit Board of Education's duties include, quote, control and management of the property and affairs of the school district, end quote, and to, quote, exercise general supervision over such schools, end quote. Wisconsin State Statute 120.12, Parent 1, Parent 2. It is the board's responsibility with recommendations from administrators and staff and with input from the community members to make governance decisions for the district, thus deciding when district schools will reopen, when schools will return to in-person instruction, or whether schools remain closed and for how long are decisions for the board, not the superintendent. Operationalizing this decision, that is, how buildings will reopen or move to in-person instruction, or how they remain closed are decisions for the superintendent. Relinquishing this decision to the superintendent indicates that board members are unaware of their responsibilities, which unnecessarily burdens the superintendent. Being clear about roles does not cast aspersions onto the interim superintendent. Rather, it demonstrates board competence, which increases trust among Beloit communities. Voters deserve to know why you abdicated this responsibility. Your responsibilities often demand difficult decisions, and in these uncertain times, your leadership is required. Stop hiding behind the superintendent. Communities in Beloit are watching and will hold you accountable. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. The next agenda item is the superintendent's report.
Thank you. For the first of the superintendent's reports to the board, I wanted to invite Jim Reesberg to come and talk a little bit more about the organization that he has started and has partnered with the school district for many years, Emergency Planning Solutions, and his information has been attached into the board docs for the public to take a look at. This is my first year working with him, and the information that he's provided to me personally as well as to the district has been invaluable in the few short months that I've been here. And in turn, talking with people who've worked with him for the past several years in planning, our district is in a very secure place with the partnership that we've had with Emergency Planning Solutions. So I invite him to come and talk a little bit more to the board if you are unaware of the work he's done with the district and how we've set up our safety plans. They are not only very strong and safe systems and structures to operate within, they also provide a measure of compliance with both the city, the state, and the national government. So if there were ever a situation in which we needed to declare an emergency, the district would actually be able to recoup some of its funds if that ended up being the case. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Reesberg to talk a little bit more about his organization and his work with the school district.
Thank you, Dr. Members of the board, citizens who are listening or watching, and staff that part.
Turn your mic on, please.
It is now.
Now it is.
It's been a long day. My name is Jim Reesberg. I'm the principal founder of Emergency Planning Solutions, which is an emergency management consulting firm that has been in business now for about 13 years. With the school district of Beloit, we have trained about 40 to 45 individuals in the art of emergency management. And emergency management is basically this, is people that come together in one place that make life and death decisions based on limited information. So that's the art of it, which is extremely difficult, but our firm has worked here in the district about 4 or 5 different times. We have worked extensively with a lot of members of this staff. Many of them are sitting here over that time period, created an emergency plan document for the district. And there are certain things that are required not only by state but federal law that has to be in there. One of the things which is based on the Presidential Preparedness Declaration number 8, which was put out by President Bush after 9/11, is that all emergency operations plan must comply with the National Incident Management System. Your plan does, because we intimately worked with members of your district over the years to make sure that you are NIMS compliant. Well, what does that mean? It means that every document for an institution that is NIMS compliance, they use the same grammar, the same identification of resources, and the functions of emergency management. And based on that, Presidential Preparedness Declaration number 8 that happened in 2001 was that in order for institutions or units of government to receive FEMA money after a major incident in their community, which also includes the city of Beloit, Rock County, or the state of Wisconsin, there have been presidential declarations of emergency in our city and in Rock County back in 1993 during the floods of the Mississippi River, which also affected the Rock River. Again in 2005 after the floods. And you just saw over the past few weeks and months about presidential declaration of emergencies for Kenosha County in Wisconsin. And what that means is, if you have a plan that is NIMS compliant, you qualify for Fema reimbursement. And how the system works is Dr. Keyser and the city manager would request through the county administrator to get Rock County, or this portion of Rock County, declared for an emergency declaration. The county administrator then must call the governor. The governor then calls the White House and asks for a presidential declaration of emergency. If the president grants that, the sitting president would call our sitting governor and say, these counties in the state of Wisconsin have now received a presidential declaration of emergency. With that comes FEMA resources, but what also comes with that is FEMA reimbursement for dollars that you expend outside your normal operations. For example, if you had several buildings here in the district that were devastated by a tornado, if you get that presidential declaration of emergency, for every dollar you spend over and above your normal operations, FEMA will reimburse 75 cents on the dollar that you expend. So the University of Louisville had a major flood several years ago. Their insurance picked up $21 million for their insurances with flooding in most of the buildings on the campus of the University of Louisville. But was not covered, which was about $2.3 million, that was reimbursed by FEMA at 75 cents on a dollar, which helped the University of Louisville out immensely. So that's why we were very concerned, and we were very focused that the emergency operations plan for the school district of Beloit was NIMS compliant. And our training mirrors that, so that everybody is trained in the same way and has the same vernacular, and be able to communicate using the same language with emergency service providers, with other Wisconsin Emergency Management, Rock County Emergency Management, and FEMA. So those are the types of things that we make sure are in this plan document. There is a section in this document that is available for any specific type of a functional annex, is how you do things, or a hazard-specific annex. For example, there is in Annex J in your plan is a public health emergency annex that has goals, objectives, and what specific things need to be covered, and how do you communicate with your county or your state public health. So all of that is in this plan, as well as fires in a building. How do you do that? How do you manage that? How do you manage things using emergency management so that you protect the reputation of the institution? Who can talk to the media? That's specific in here. Who can make decisions and talk to other elected officials? That's specific in here. A lot of this falls back on Dr. Keyser now, as we went through the plan and went through the training about a month and a half or 2 months ago, so that everybody in that room, everybody in the districts understand that you don't have 14, 15 people speaking to the state, local, and national media. That's done by 1 or 2 people, and that's it. So that you send a positive message. How you deal and how you communicate with your stakeholders. There's a crisis communications plan in this document. There is a continuity of operations plan in this document, in an annex, that says if you cannot do business in this building tomorrow, what's plan B? Where do people report to work? What type of systems are built into this that you can continue to hold school, to conduct business tomorrow if this building is destroyed? Or what resources are available in the community that if something happens with one of the school buildings that you cannot populate it for any reason, where do those kids go to school tomorrow? And how that's communicated to parents, students, faculty, and staff. So it's a comprehensive plan. It's a comprehensive system. We have spent time here working with a lot of your building people on how to do a vulnerability assessment. Where are you vulnerable? We were here at 8, 9 o'clock at night last December, going around to buildings and found out that there were outside doors that were propped open. That gives access to somebody that shouldn't have access. We did the high school, Cunningham, and one other one. Help me, Emily, I don't really remember which one it was, but we did 3 schools. And we walked around with a lot of your staff on how to recognize things that could be a problem and could be a vulnerability for the district if the proper attention is not given to that. So I don't know if there's any other questions or Dr. Keyser comments that you had. I know Emily has been involved with this from the beginning. Michelle has been involved with this from the beginning, as has Mr. Bosco been in. So these people really know what they're doing. But we are we're your consultant, we're your partner. 2 of my partners, myself and one other partner, live in Rock County. I live in the city. So, John. Mr. Wong, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Reesberg, for the presentation. And question, is this a requirement of every school district in the nation or in the state?
Every school district needs to have an emergency management plan. There are several models you can choose from. The fact that Mr. Reesberg has developed a plan specifically that is NIMS compliant, provides that added benefit to the district that if there were something to happen, we have the access and resources to the federal government, but it's not to guarantee that a plan is going to be NIMS compliant.
A follow-up to that then is how many, I guess if anybody knows this, and Mr. Reesberg, if you know of this, how many are compliant, NIMS compliant in the state or in the nation? I know that you do a lot of training with this.
Mr. Wong, it's hard to tell. I mean, right after 9/11, there were a lot of school districts, a lot of institutes of higher education that just went out, hired somebody to write a plan for them and had no input, don't know how to function with it, and it sits on someplace in a closet somewhere on campus. We've had a lot of people contact us and say, will you write a plan for us? And from the beginning of us starting this business, our answer is no, not unless we train the staff on how to manage and function within the plan document. So we've had hundreds of people say, we'll pay you $30,000 to come write a plan, and our answer is no, we will not do that. Not unless we train them. And that we get their assistance, because I haven't attended class in this district for longer than I want to think about right now. But so it has to have that personal ownership of that by the staff, faculty, and administrators here on what to do when a crisis occurs, and that we exercise that at least once annually so that make sure that people are ready, willing, and able to sit in those seats and make those life and death decisions based on limited information.
Thank you. And that answers my follow-up question I was going to have is, this is an annual training that is conducted throughout the district, correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
And it's a pressure test, I'll say that.
Are there any other questions from the board? Right, see none. Thank you very much, Mr. Reesberg.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you,
and
Dr. Keyser.
Everybody be safe. Dr. Keyser, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next agenda item is the superintendent's report to the board on November general election.
All right. So I wanted to provide this public opportunity for board members to provide some input. As we all know, the November election coming up is the second day of the first week in November. So that is a very important time, and I had shared with the board that my intent in working with Lori Luther at the city and evaluating our polling sites, we have 4 sites that are polling sites, and unfortunately, in looking at the surrounding community, there are not alternative sites to try to move polling sites outside of our school. So with that being said, my intent is to extend that first term to go that first week into November, which would ensure, regardless of a decision that's being made in the first week of October about what the second term is going to look like, this would ensure that distance learning would continue for that first week in November. That provides an opportunity for myself to work with the 4 schools in terms of what our practice has been for polling, which to my understanding has been that they sequester the gym space off, the city comes in, they set up in the gym, staff don't go into the gym, community doesn't come out of the gym. But regardless, we would also have the opportunity to assign staff not to be in those buildings during that election day and the day after. The city would be in charge of, and they have said that they would do the cleaning and all of that after the election day. So by doing that, ensures that we're not going to have students in the building because we'd still be in distance learning. We have the opportunity to evaluate, as Mr. Reesberg was talking about, evaluate the safety of the building with our staff and make a decision on if we can maintain the safety of our staff and having the community during that national election, or to simply just have staff work from an alternative site, whether it be from home. And I wanted to get the input from the board as I may start to weigh those decisions and look at that. So provide the opportunity via email, and to ensure the public opportunity to hear input from the board, I want to bring that here. So I'm open for comments and thoughts from individual board members.
Board Member Levy?
Dr. Keiser, have you considered, instead of extending the term date, simply extend the distance/learning date if the decision is made to go face-to-face for term 2? Because in doing so, you wouldn't have to worry about changing when grades are due or possible scheduling conflicts in Skyward.
That's a very good question. Yes, that is an alternative option that I am weighing. I wanted to provide the board something to react to, but absolutely, that is another option to look at, is to start term 2 and then ensure that first week is going to be distance learning. This might also be a moot point with local context being what it is. Come that first week in October, we might be continuing in term 2 distance learning anyways, but to your point, yes.
And I appreciate you giving us something to start with. Do you have an idea of how grades or scheduling would be impacted if we are face-to-face for term 1, but you extend the term?
In essence, we started a week late, so it would not, other than extending the posting period, which we can do through Skyward, we're far enough ahead that I could get the communication out, and it would be a minimal impact. I don't know if I answered your question.
That's fine. Thank you.
Vice President Miller?
Thank you, Dr. Keiser. I really appreciate that you took the time to meet with our city and to collaborate, and I'm really happy that we all mutually agree that Election Day is very important and we want to promote civic engagement. That being said, similarly to Board Member Levy, I was just curious if the teachers or building principals have weighed in on which of the options is best.
I wanted to start with the board and get the board's input, and that would be the next step, would be to talk with administrators. Yep.
Okay, I would be in favor of either. I agree with the sentiments of Board Member Levy that, kind of whatever is going to work best for the teachers. Like there might be something that as a board member I'm not noticing. I mean, it seems perfectly fine to me either way, to be honest, but I would just defer to whatever works best instructionally for our teachers.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Any other comments from the board or questions from the board? All right, seeing none. Anything else, Dr. Kueser?
No, thank you. I appreciate the comments, and I will take that and then start reaching out to our administrators. Yep.
Thank you very much. Brings us into our reports section of the agenda. And the first report is from our student board member. Kana Wong is a senior at Beloit Memorial High School and was elected by his peers to represent the student body on our board. So welcome, Kana.
Hello, thanks for having me. My name's Kana. I'm president of NHS at Beloit Memorial, vice president of Key Club, one of the captains of the boys swim team, and then obviously I'm doing this as well. I'm really grateful to have been elected for this position. I'm really looking forward to this year. I hope that by the next meeting I'll be able to report more on the middle schools, which I'll do by asking principals or student-run clubs, such as student council or MEO, if they're up and running, how things are going. I was able to meet with Ms. Pells this past week, and I think that we found a good way to attempt to capture the voices of our high school students given the circumstances. Last week, I asked Ms. Pells to send out a poll that I made to help me get a better idea of how our high schoolers were acclimating to online school, and I talked with several teachers about how their classes were going as well. As of last night, the survey fetched nearly 400 responses, with about 2/3 of these responses coming from grades 9 and 10. The survey was sent out on Thursday, but because of technical difficulties, grades 11 and 12 received the poll on Monday morning. Most of the results were fairly expected, but there were a couple of things I found very interesting, which I will now share. 88% of the students are going to classes in the morning, and an additional 4% aren't going at all. That responded to the poll, that is. Many of the teachers that I've talked to, as well as the teachers that I have mentioned how this is extremely inconvenient for lesson plans. Some afternoon classes have 2 or 3 students, and for teachers trying to be creative with lesson plans, activities with few students are hard to do. I think that this data can justify the idea of offering only a morning class, which might make it easier for teachers to have effective classes. These classes would then be recorded and posted for students who couldn't make the lessons because of any valid reason. Another observation is that while a large majority of students are perfectly happy and fine with class as is, about 15%, including myself, think that the class time of 30 minutes is pretty inefficient because it is too long for just attendance and kids to ask questions about homework, but it's pretty short and doesn't quite allow for teachers to lecture as much as you might want them to. While I think a lot of teachers are doing their best to work around this, I personally think that students and teachers would benefit by slightly longer class times of maybe 40 to 45 minutes. Only 1/3 of the students that responded said that they're fully awake and are paying attention during class, while nearly 2/3 are multitasking or hardly listening at all. I think that one way to help this might be to require cameras or to maybe incentivize kids to turn them on a little bit more. I wouldn't imagine that this would be easy to enforce or even that everyone would expect their students to abide by this rule, but I think it would definitely be a good push in the right direction for kids who are multitasking or struggling to stay focused in class. Lastly, I read through a couple hundred comments, lots of complaints, but also quite a few nice things about the teachers and their efforts as well. A couple of repeated criticisms that I thought had merit behind them are: 1, classes should be longer, which I agree with. 2, put everything on the same platform. When kids are trying to switch between Google Classroom, looking at their email, going on Schoology, and other platforms each day, it can get confusing and you can get kind of lost and forget about certain assignments. And then lastly, number 3, I want to be at the high school. Far and away the most reported statements were ones about wanting to be back at school ASAP, no matter what it takes. I'm not sure if that's in the cards, but I know a lot of students would be really grateful to have the opportunity to go back to school term 2.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the board committee reports. Planning and Budget Committee, and Board Member Wong is the chair of that committee.
Good evening. The Planning and Budget Committee met on September 1st, Tuesday, September 1st at 5:15. We started out the meeting, actually it was kind of interesting and unique, and I was going to save this for last, but I figured I'd just go in order. The first presentation was regarding a food truck, which was really something I think that kind of took everybody by surprise to some extent. But Ms. Armstrong and Ms. Smith and Mr. Haxton from our Airmark all presented together and provided us with an explanation as far as what we could purchase and how it would fall under Fund 50 funding, which is the food service budget. And currently we do have an excess funding in that area, and we have. We talked about, we also working with, I should say, Ms. Smith has been working with Ms. Armstrong and Mr. Winters, the facilities director, for about a year, in an effective way to utilize the excess funds. And the food truck would come fully loaded and equipped with retractable awnings and air conditioning, et cetera, et cetera. We had a good discussion about this. There was a lot of great questions that were raised as far as additional ways that we could use Fund $50. This one, they've been working on this for the last few years. And at this point in time, they felt as though it would be very beneficial for the district. This could be used in a number of capacities. And if you have time, look over the notes as far as the questions that were raised. The cost of each truck is going to be $205,000 each. We would have 2 of them, one that would serve the east side and one would serve the west side of the community. And they would be used at a number of functions throughout the district. So very exciting. This will be on the consent agenda for this evening unless it's pulled off for questions and comments. The second area of topic that was raised or that was discussed was, we got in the programs and curriculum. Ford NGL, we're entering phase 2, and this is at the high school. This is Mr. Briesmeister, the CTE director, presented the Ford NGL phase 2, career academics. The purpose is to prepare students for college and career readiness. Briesmeister shared concerns such as student engagement, attendance, tardiness, work habits, test scores, content knowledge, and planning for after high school and breaking the cycle of poverty. Ford NGL has been proven through a number of districts throughout this country to be very effective. We're entering phase 2 of this initiative, which I think a lot of people are very excited about as we proceed through this. But that was approved to be pushed forward to the board for final approval and will be on tonight's consent agenda as well. He then presented on the credit recovery program renewal. And we have been working with 2 different programs. One is the Apex Learning and Ingenuity, and those will be, we're looking to approve those for the year 2021 and 2020 and 2021. He provided the background indicating the programs allow students to work on their own pace. Apex Learning has been used at BMHS during the year and during the school year for credit recovery. Tutorials are used to determine where students' skill level is, and then create and then create several items to improve those skills. Ingenuity is currently being used at BLA. Both of those programs were also approved to be pushed forward and will be presented tonight on the consent agenda. And the last item was the literacy pilots. And this, Mr. Vasco, the Leadership and Equity Director, along with Rosemary Larson, presented on the literacy pilot programs. They shared that the pilot program is this is for the 2020 and 2021 school year, which are to increase the proficiency at the 5-5 levels, or 5 grade levels, adopt the literacy. Is that right on that word in those minutes? But anyways, we went into that. We had several questions regarding that. The evaluation process, but they had a good presentation for that. That, once again, will also be presented at the consent agenda for this evening. Our next board meeting will occur on Tuesday, October 4th at 5:15. And that's all for the Planning and Budget Committee meeting.
Thank you very much, Board Member Wong. Oversight and Finance, Board Member Levy, please.
The Oversight and Finance Committee met on Tuesday, September 8th. Ms. Beavers and others presented 7 Mindsets, which is the proposed social and emotional learning curriculum for grades 9 through 12. Mrs. Armstrong and Ms. LaPointe presented the June and July financial reports and budget revisions. And our next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, October 13th. The time is yet to be announced.
Thank you very much, Board Member Levy. Policy and Personnel, Board Member Jacobs.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. We've been very busy with meeting twice monthly and going through our employment recs. We met in August, on August 10th and the 24th, and we are now moving toward a little bit different way of doing things. The first, or the second Tuesday, the first meeting of each month, we are taking a little bit more time to dive into our policies. We are going to, under Dr. Kieser's guidance, we are going to be starting with the 500 series, and we're going to be doing an intensive policy review. So what that means is we're going to find things that are possibly redundant or no longer viable for our district. We will remove those, and we will update policies as we go along if they need to be. And this time, with the first time we meet each month, will just give us a lot more time to go further in depth and discussion on our policies. We are going to be discussing next month. We will be, Dr. Kieser has set up an item where has set up a system where we can go in prior to the actual meeting date, and the board members on the committee, and ask questions or make suggestions on individual policies that we're looking at. So that should be a time saver and get us all on the same page a little bit faster. And our next meeting date is October 13th, with the time to be determined. Thanks.
Thank you very much. The Governance Committee met this evening before our business meeting, and we finalized a survey going out to all board members, asking about like their orientation onto the board, evaluate, and also to evaluate the professional development and work that we've done so far this year, as well as ask about areas of learning that we can continue to work on throughout this year. So that survey was actually emailed out to board members immediately following. Our next Governance Committee meeting will be on October 27th, time to be determined, but before the business meeting. The next up is the legislative update. So Vice President Miller, and I did, just before the meeting, I did upload an updated version of the legislative update.
Thank you, Mr. President. Let me just try and share my screen quick. Thanks for your patience, so that everybody can look along. I guess just let me know. Oh, there it goes. Okay. We'll give it a minute. All right. So good evening, everybody. Our legislative update includes some local announcements. The city of Beloit is hiring election officials. You can both volunteer, I think, or get hired for Election Day, Tuesday, November the 3rd. You can find resources and resources for voting in elections here at this link. If you want to click on there from board docs, you should be able to do that. The other 2 points are unchanged. We're still in a phased reopening plan at the county level, and the city continues to uphold its own resolutions regarding COVID safety. What I included that wasn't in here earlier was that at the state level, Wisconsin tax collections are actually on target. They were originally predicting a really significant shortfall for school funding in particular, but if you Here, I can open it up if anybody's interested. Actually, my Chromebook's pretty slow, so I won't. But if you go ahead and click on there, there's a really great article that describes a much less scary budget situation, which should help us out at the state level in the future. So that's exciting news. If at any point anybody would like to contact your state officials who are still not meeting at this time, all the information is here. There's information on committees, our assembly contacts, and our state senate contacts. And just like last time, we're still calling upon people to reach out to our legislators to let them know how our students with special needs and students who are otherwise marginalized are being impacted by COVID-19, so that we can ask for good response at the state level when they are able to meet again. So are there any questions? Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Vice President Miller.
Yep.
This month we have an additional item called board member reports. So this is something similar to what the City Council does. They begin every meeting kind of talking about community functions they've attended or other meetings that they've gone to in the community. It's one of our board goals that we do this quarterly. So we'll do it tonight, we'll do it again in December, and then in March. So I asked each board member to prepare a brief summary of meetings and functions they've attended. I'm sure the list is much shorter than it normally might be. So we'll start off with Board Member Levy, please.
Okay. So I'm fortunate that my role as the Racial Justice Director for the YWCA Rock County affords me the opportunity to have lots of community interaction and involvement. So some of the things that I'm currently working on and working with other partner agencies, Courageous Conversations, which is hosted by the YWCA Rock County, Community Action, and Diversity Action Team of Rock County, are held every fourth Monday via Zoom from 5:30 to 7. So upcoming next Monday, our Justice in Policing discussion will occur. I'm also involved in Lunch and Learn. So the first one will be October 1st from noon to 1. You can visit the WISE website for registration information if you're interested. Our topic will be the urgency of learning to talk about race, and our speaker is Dr. Lisa Anderson Levy, anthropology professor at Beloit College. Recent and upcoming Diversity Action Team events, which I've been a part of. On September 17th, the topic was working together when COVID-19 and racial disparities meet. The next topic will be October 15th, So You Think You Can Vote, which is going to be very timely. Diversity Action Team, of course, is nonpartisan, and they will give you helpful information for how you can engage civically and exercise your right to vote if you are eligible. I've also been working with JOB and Expo. So JOB, for those who are not aware, is Justice Overcoming Borders. So participating in meetings and one-on-one trainings. Expo, I actually attended one of their meetings last Saturday, which was great. Expo is Ex-Incarcerated People Organizing, and they hosted the Looming Crisis, COVID-19 and Wisconsin prisons, so very informative. I'm also active with the NAACP, the Beloit branch, so attending meetings. They have elections coming up in November for all NAACP members who are interested. Please contact Ms. Harrell. And then I'm also working with Kids Forward on the Rock County Race to Equity report. Some of you may be familiar with their Dane County Race to Equity report, so we're really excited that they are going to be analyzing our community and continuing to work on our 6th annual Racial Justice Conference through the YWCA Rock County coming up on November 12th. Make sure that you register. That will open soon. And the theme this year is Be the Bridge to Eliminate Racism, Commit to Action. We have a fantastic slate of speakers. I encourage you to visit the website if you're interested. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Levy. Vice President Miller, will you please go next?
I would be delighted to. Thank you for your report, Board Member Levy. And I forgot to say at our legislative update, thank you very much and welcome to the board, Student Representative Mr. Wong. So I have been a little busy going back to school. I'm a reading interventionist up at Whitewater High School, but I have Been fortunate enough to find time to sit through most of, although Zoom kicked me out toward the end, of Diversity Actions program on September 17th, which was really excellent, featuring many speakers whose names I can't remember, and I'm sorry, but Dr. Ron Watson from Beloit College about the impact of COVID on communities of color. It was a very interesting presentation. Diversity Action Team, I know Board Member Levy mentioned earlier, has also done Courageous Conversations. I've been attending, I'm on the board also for the Beloit Public Library, and I am now chairing possibly a committee called the Inclusion Committee, so I'm really excited about that. And our first meeting is going to be October 5th, and it will be open to community members, so I'll be getting that information out on the interwebs at some point. So I'm pretty excited about that. It's about increasing our inclusion and updating our strategic plan at the Beloit Public Library to be more responsive to our whole community. So that's been pretty exciting. Been working with a group of concerned citizens through the Showing Up for Racial Justice group on a community equity plan for local businesses and nonprofits. And that's been led by Meg Trim, and it's been really exciting and interesting to be a part of that team and to listen to all the ideas from the area about ways that we can help make Beloit better and more accessible to everybody. So that's been pretty cool. I've also sat in, although less so this month, on some meetings with the Beloit Public Education Network. And because school has started, unfortunately, I missed the last NAACP meeting and the Education Committee for League of Women Voters, but I usually try to get to those as well. So it's an exciting month. Back to school makes things a little chaotic, but it's always great to be part of community stuff. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about it.
Thank you, Vice President Miller, for the report. Board Member Delgado.
Good evening, everyone. I try to stay involved as much as I can, like to participate in the Courageous Conversations, the diversity action meetings that they have. Also try to stay involved with the NAACP. I am a current board member for the YWCA, so I stay busy with that as well. I'm the chair for the Racial Justice Committee, and I'm also a co-chair for the Racial Justice Conference, which Amy has mentioned that already. Hopefully a lot of you can join us on that. It's going to be virtual this year. And like Amy said, we have a great line of speakers coming up. Been involved with that for the last 5 years, so I'm very excited about this year. I'm involved with language barrier ad hoc, through the school district as well. Excited of new ideas and where that's taking us. I've been also involved just talking with different community members regarding distance learning, mostly with students, just trying to get some input as to what's working, what's not working. Have received good positive feedback. Obviously, like the student board member mentioned, most of them would like to be back to school. But still continue the conversation with parents and community members. So yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Thank you very much, Board Member Delgado. Board Member Anderson.
As most people have said, with everything kind of with work and things going on, and with COVID, it's kind of hard to get out. Though I've had one thing that I've done recently that really comes to mind. I was asked to go to a church gathering in the Merrill community, and they were there just kind of like meet some local elected officials, get a chance to talk to us, and then also for us to have a chance to hear their concerns.
Very good. Thank you very much. Board Member Wong.
Good evening, everyone. As with the COVID situation, a lot of things have shut down. I actually serve on a few different boards. One is I am currently a trustee for the Beloit Health System, which has actually been a great honor to work with the people on that board. It's been very interesting to get a sort of a front row view of what's going on with COVID from the health center, from the health system standpoint. And I think that the planning that was done early on, looking back, was very, there's a lot of foresight put into that. I think the team up there did a wonderful job, and currently they've hired back all the employees that they furloughed initially, or that we furloughed. I think that the role that we took as a community health center was great for the community, and I hope that many people did benefit from that. I know the COVID numbers have come down as far as hospitalization rates dramatically from a high of 20 to where we are today. I think it's in a low single digit. I've also served as president of Kids Against Hunger, which is an organization I've been on for the last 12 years. Unfortunately, due to COVID, we don't have a lot going on, and we haven't for the last 6 months. We do have an event that we're going to try to attempt to do in November. That'll be up in Janesville area. I've also actually been a Rotary member, but I would have to say that I've not attended a meeting since COVID because we haven't had any meetings. But they've started to have them in person, and my plan is to get back involved in that. But it's a meeting, lunch invite only, so I have to make my arrangements on that. As part of a representative for the district here, I'm also serving on the Beloit Alcohol and Beverage Committee, which I find to be very interesting, and it's just keeping track of all the licenses that are issued throughout the city. And this next month, I have an opportunity to listen to spend a full day on a seminar that will be put on by the state, and that is in regards to, the Wisconsin Alcohol Policy Seminar. So that'll be a full day, and I'll be able to maybe report back on something from that if I find something exciting, which I'm sure there will be. As far as other volunteer activities, I've always been active with trying to help out as much as possible with youth. I would credit my wife as well for being very involved in that, with the volunteer hours that she puts in, but I've also done a lot of mentoring myself, which I really enjoy. I've reached out to most of the ones that I've talked to. I have a couple of specific ones that by text, and it's been very nice to have the communication with them. I also have been involved with one group. It's a small group, and we've been met several times over the last few years in regards to youth sports for our community. And we're trying to work together with the YWCA, or the YMCA, and as well as the Boys and Girls Club. So we have a small committee. We have a meeting coming up to discuss ways that we can get our youth sports back on track within the community. Might be missing a few things, but that's it for now. Thanks.
Thank you, Board Member Wong. Board Member Jacobs.
Good evening. Sorry about that. I was trying to unmute myself. Well, I'm afraid I'm a bit boring compared to my colleague board members. As I'm sitting here listening to everyone, I'm just reflecting on when I went into retirement. I guess I really went into retirement. I was on quite a few committees when I was working, and obviously that's something I'm going to have to get back into, though with COVID it is difficult. What I can say I've done is I've reached out, and others have reached out to me regarding the distance learning and how that's going, whether it's been staff or parents. So I've taken a lot of calls on that and had a lot of discussions on that, but other than that, that's about it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Board Member Jacobs. One organization that I'm not quite as active in as I wish I could be because of timing is Beloit Literacy for Life, and so I do serve on the Rudder Group. And when the pandemic first hit, they kind of suspended meetings, and so over the course of the summer, our Rudder Group meetings started to happen virtually again. And I have an event where I'm attending on the 2nd, focusing on early childhood education literacy. And towards the end of the summer, I reached out to a former Beloit Memorial High School student, and we are under the umbrella of Beloit Literacy for Life and partnering with the school district. We're working on something big. I don't want to, say anything yet, but so we're working on a project that will hopefully be ready in the summer. So that's really been my my activities, in kind of in the same boat as Vice President Miller, where going back to school and back to work takes a lot of time. So, and board members, I would be willing to hear feedback on this is our first time doing it. So if you have any suggestions or feedback as how this went as we continue for December, please let me know. Thank you very much for everybody for your reports. This brings us to the consent agenda. So on the consent agenda are the financial reports for June 2020, the financial reports for July 2020, the June 2020 budget revisions, the food truck presentation, the Ford NGL Phase 2 Career Academies, credit recovery program renewal, literacy pilots, September 8th and 22nd, 2020 employment recommendations, business meeting minutes. Is there anything a board member would like removed from the consent agenda? Or is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Board Member Levy?
Thank you. I would like to have the food truck item removed and also credit recovery program renewal.
Okay, so the food truck presentation and credit recovery program renewal have been removed from the consent agenda. Is there anything else a board member would like removed, or is there a motion to approve the consent agenda without those two items?
I move to approve the consent agenda with the removal of items D and F, please.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda, eliminating items D and F. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of approving the consent agenda minus items D and F, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. So let's start off with item D, the food truck presentation.
So my question is, the more the presentation went on, the more excited I got about it. So it's my understanding that the proposal is to purchase 2 trucks, and the main function of the truck, although I acknowledge there are other useful ways that they will be utilized, is to deliver food for our students on the east and west side of Beloit, especially during distance learning, so the students can have a hot meal. Well, as I thought about it more, is there a plan? So let's just take the east side of town. Okay, we have 1 truck. Is there a logistics plan to make sure that that 1 truck visits all of our communities, or is it targeted communities? And the reason I ask that is currently my children don't participate in the grab and go program, but with all of the exciting offerings that were proposed for the food truck, I'm sure they would like to participate. And since they're school district students, they're eligible to do so. So logistically, can 1 truck visit all of our neighborhoods during a lunch period?
That is a great question, Board Member Levy, and I appreciate that thought process through there. As we get approval for these trucks, that planning cycle and how that deployment will all come into play. So our expectation is probably not that we could deliver from that 1 truck to every location during the school hours, but we would probably I can't speak to the exact plan because we haven't gotten to that stage yet, but my initial thought process is that we would be targeting areas, but we would hit all areas within that week. So as we're transitioning to the new grab and goes, where we're distributing more meals than at 1 location, so we're going to distribute on Mondays and distribute on Thursdays, and they'll get 3 and they'll get 4. We would be able to utilize some of that. But we would also be able to, the thought process is 1 for the west and 1 for the east. If we had to consolidate, 1 got done faster, we can move those around the district to serve where our needs are. The idea is also when we're not in distance learning, setting them up at schools, which I want to remind everyone that as long as they're serving during the school hours, if we set that up for like a McNeil picnic for the PBIS or whatever, those meals are still free to all of our students. So this isn't an object of somebody can't come to the food truck because it's on the site. If this is part of our program,
those meals, the only time there would be money per se exchanged for food is when it's working outside events that are hosted outside of our lunch program. So I can't specifically answer exactly how we would deploy that at every neighborhood, but we do not envision this would be in any way exclusionary of any neighborhoods or areas, but we do want to target those deliveries of people who cannot get to our sites to pick up those meals. This is to remove barriers, which we're already doing deliveries as well under our regular program. This just allows us to provide hot meals because we'd have the capacity of keeping them hot and cold. Did that answer your question for the most part?
Not really, but Board Member Miller is next, and then I'll wait my turn.
You go ahead. It's fine. I can wait till you're done.
Oh, and this is just more of a comment than it is a question. Well, one, I do have a question, and then I have a comment. So my question is, so let's say we have the food trucks. We have one on the east side, one on the west side. Will you still have grab and go available, and then there would be an alternative for the hot lunch provided by the truck? Since you said the truck, if I heard you correctly, would make it to all of the neighborhoods within a week, but not necessarily within that day. So we would be offering both the truck and grab and go?
If we are maintaining the environment that we are in, where we're in distance and we're providing meals at home and under our of the summer food provision, even though it's not summer, that's the authority that we're using, yes, we would be able to provide. I don't anticipate removing any of our barriers. It gives us another avenue. But the reminder is this truck wouldn't be available probably until February as well.
Okay, and then my comment, which I don't need I mean, you can offer a response if you would like, but it's not being solicited, is that I am less enthused because for me, like the extra stuff, like the fundraising, that's icing. But for me, the cake was we can provide hot meals for our students, but logistically, I don't see how we can consistently do that with one truck on the east side and one truck on the west side without targeting one population of students. I am less enthused now because there doesn't seem to be like a realistic logistical plan to how we can execute delivering hot food to all of our kids with these trucks in a distance/virtual learning environment.
Vice President Miller.
Thank you for that. We had a very long and in-depth policy meeting where we discussed the food trucks, and just for the benefit of folks who may not have listened to that very long meeting, I was hoping, Ms. Armstrong, if you wouldn't mind just kind of summarizing kind of the breadth of future plans that we had talked about. I understand primarily, of course, that is to serve hot meals to our students. But I know we had sort of talked about like merging that with some career and technical education learning opportunities for our students. And kind of like the question that goes along with that is, and I think maybe in line with where Board Member Levy is coming from, is I'm curious about what the updates will be in terms of like what are the metrics that you're using to determine success for the program. So I kind of like two-part thing. Could you kind of give us the scope of possibility as it stands now, and do you have plans for like coming up with metrics for are we being successful, which I think would fall into like, are we serving all kids who need to, like in a reasonable amount of time? Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely. Okay. And so based on the conversations that were had in the first discussion of this presentation at the committee level, Dawn Smith and Jared Hexton have both set up meetings, talked with Mitch Freemeister, in that they want to include teachers in that conversation on how we can engage the students in the process of some opportunities for them to work and learn and, get some educational or academic benefit from this, even though that isn't truly what the nature of Fund 50 is. As we kind of explained, Fund 50 pays for refrigerators and freezers and all that, but we did understand and hear that component of
wanting to engage those students. So I want to include that in there. Mitch was very excited to start these conversations. We're getting that list of teachers that he wants to encourage in that group as well. So Dawn is working with Mitch on that process. So it is happening based on those conversations. You know, we have a lot of planning left to do, you know, and trying to put all the planning in place before we have approval is, you know, I don't want to say it's a waste of time. We have thought about the metrics. What we are hoping to do is increase participation. You know, if we can get meals to where our kids are and where that need is, that is going to be our first priority. But I want to be inclusive of everyone, removing those barriers such as transportation. You know, as colder months come up in February, if these are arriving, it's going to be cold. And if we are in a situation where we can't return to school and we have distance learning, these trucks will give us that opportunity. And we can truly, if we want, we can set the hours of what we're serving. And it's what we have as far as labor and who can drive those trucks, which we will have licensed drivers. It's not a special CDL or we're using Durham transportation as well. We can deliver from 8 a.m. until 3 o'clock, which is our school day. We can serve we can do the delivery. We just have to have the resources for it. And that is one of the premises behind this truck is being able to keep food at temperature. But the metrics that we're going to be using is what is our participation? How are we getting the feedback from those communities? How are members receiving it? We do have our highest numbers at this point coming from delivery requests. And so this would provide us an opportunity of not necessarily serving just cold meals. It would allow us the opportunity to give them, you know, if we were to still provide 1 meal or 3 meals, we could give them a hot meal and 3 refrigerated meals for the next days. It provides more opportunities to serve those. But logistically, we will have to look at routes and how we can get to those. I want to get to the most groups that we can.
So just to be clear, the metrics are going to include like the number of meals and the efficiency of getting those within a span of time to those. You talked about being responsive to requests from the community, right? Am I getting the gist of it?
Yep.
Okay.
The primary purpose is to increase participation and provide meals to our families.
Okay. So it sounds like you have like a rough sketch of metrics, and you're saying that like once the kind of what you were saying at the committee meeting is like once you get the approval, that's where the more in-depth planning goes?
Yes, and we will be providing reports back to the board as we had agreed in the committee meeting, is showing that progress and what we're doing. And throughout this planning process, we have to have approval to order these because they're custom made for us before we put all that time and energy. We've done a lot of the research at other districts on how they're proving success and how it's working. And I know Jared and Dawn can probably speak a little more to that of what other districts are doing where they have had success with this. But that's what we've been discussing for the last year in planning.
All right, well, I won't take the wind out of the sails of the next question, so I'll stop talking and turn it over. Go ahead.
Board Member Levy.
Thank you. So Mrs. Armstrong, I know that there are certain funds set aside that can only be used for certain purposes, and that surplus would be used to cover the cost of these trucks. When is the deadline that a decision needs to be made so we could allocate those funds and still be within that window?
Well, as we said, if this was approved tonight, we would put the order in, and they are estimating the trucks would be here mid-February. These funds have to be spent by June 30th or returned to the government. And so we can't order it in June and expect it can't be paid for because it wouldn't be here and be usable in this fiscal year.
So just to clarify, placing the order is not tantamount to purchasing. The truck has to be built, delivered, and used before it is considered as a purchase?
Yes, just as in curriculum and supplies, you have to have them and they have to be usable by students prior to the end of the fiscal year to be counted as this year's allowable expense.
So if I'm doing my math correct, it's about a 4-month process, correct?
Yes.
So a decision would be made, the deadline would be like near the end of January, beginning of February?
Pending that there's no delays, and with, I hate, with COVID, there are plenty of delays in getting materials and things. So, I mean, technically, yes, you could probably push it out, but you're going to be pushing that availability of it being delivered in time for use.
And then, thank you so much. My final question is, can you stipulate that in the contract? Like, we will purchase this custom truck pending that it is delivered and available for use by June 15th.
I would have to look at the contract for sure. I mean, we can put deadlines in it, but I don't know that the company would be receptive to saying you're giving me a 3-month or 4-month period and we're going to guarantee it's here. Because there are going potentially to be delays, I would feel comfortable putting a stipulation on it saying that it has, if we were to order now, that it has to be here by March 15th or April 1st, saying that because we can anticipate delays, they're expecting mid-February. I would be remiss if I said, as long as you hit it by June 15th, I'm happy. No, I expect it to be here by the spring.
Thank you.
All right, are there any other questions or discussion regarding the food truck or a motion? And if you click on the individualized item, there is the suggested motion there if anyone's looking for it.
I'd like to move approval to the purchase of 2 food trucks from Fund 50.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the purchase of 2 food trucks from Fund 50. Are there any other questions or discussion? I do have a
Not
question.
discussion, but, sorry.
No,
Not discussion, but just.
Usually when we approve a purchase, we use a specific dollar amount. And I know that they don't have a specific dollar amount yet. The approximate cost is $410,000. And so I'm looking to the board secretary and maybe Ms. Armstrong as to how you would handle that in the motion. I mean, I would like to move this along, but I also don't want to seem like we're handing over a blank check.
I think if you amend the motion to include the estimated cost of $410,000 for the 2 trucks, that's based on our quote, and that gives approval. If it's going to be outside of that realm, we would come back and inform the board of any changes that would be perceived.
Thank you. Is there such an amendment?
Can I amend my own?
Absolutely.
Okay, I'd like to amend my motion to actually move approval for the purchase of 2 food trucks from Fund 50 in the approximate amount of $410,000, which equates to $205,000 for each truck.
Is there a second to the amendment?
Sure, I'll second.
Okay. Board Member Levy.
My only point for discussion, and it may just be an announcement, is that I'm not comfortable with spending almost $500,000 when we don't have the logistics behind the main reason trucks be purchased for, and that's to deliver a hot meal for our students that are not able to procure a hot meal by other means. Without having the logistics of how we can consistently reach our students, I'm just not able to support this at this time.
Vice President Miller.
Thank you. In these other districts that you studied, Ms. Armstrong, you'd mentioned that the other, I'm sorry, I can't remember your name, but Ms. Smith and somebody else had presented at the last meeting. So when we looked at other districts and how we did this, I mean, do we have a sense of how their routes work and like what their metrics like are that they use? Like, you know what I'm saying? So we can get a better sense of the efficacy of this undertaking?
Jared or Dawn, do you want to unmute and answer that question?
Thank you. This is Dawn Smith. Yes, the food truck that we did an analysis on was actually in Indiana, and it was actually for a university. We also have someone on an Airmark team in Fond du Lac that is familiar with this. We'd have to get a little bit more information on the logistics of how they did their own delivery.
So is this something, do we think that it would be possible within a reasonable amount of time to do a study and make sure like we actually have a plan for how to deliver and meet the needs like based on the metrics that were shared, which if I have written down, I think include the participation demand from the community and the quantity of meals needed? I'm just curious, like how long would you expect it to take to do such a study for the city of Beloit? And just the only reason I'm asking is because, university service situation is probably not entirely comparable to what exactly we want to use it for, unless I'm misunderstanding.
Sure. There's a food truck that they use in Indiana. They actually share this with the university. I'm sorry. Yeah, we could maybe get some idea of how they're using it. I know that they use it every single day in their elementaries. I'd have to see what they're doing currently. But we actually got the idea from this university that was using it with their school district.
So it's being used for the elementary students, you said?
Yes, they're sharing it. It's actually owned by the university, I believe. And this is actually their design that we're using. I believe that we could get some data from them in the next couple of weeks. I think that we would be able to get some data.
Okay, and I think that, I think this is really exciting for all the reasons that we talked about. Now that there's kind of like shared enthusiasm, there's emotion on the table, I think it's very likely that, I guess I won't speak for the board. I mean, I know there are a lot of exciting opportunities here. I'm just wondering if maybe in order to move forward all the way, I guess like maybe I would just be curious if we could have like a plan for like, based on the demand numbers you already have, you said you're getting feedback, asking for meals to be delivered. Maybe we could craft some kind of like a route or a design plan for both trucks in the next couple of weeks. And I don't know what other board members think of that, but I feel like that would be reassuring and help know that we're going to be able to best utilize these funds to meet the needs of those students and families.
Currently, the delivery schedule is done by the families that are calling in and requesting their meals to be delivered. So there isn't necessarily a set route other than those that have requested every day. So I have the numbers and I can share those at any point with people on what we are doing as far as deliveries in our current environment. I don't know if that is helpful to what you're looking for.
I think that would be a great start, sure, so we can kind of see the numbers and all that And that, I mean, do you anticipate, Ms. Armstrong, that the numbers are going to be, that are going to rise? I mean, this is pretty cool. I think Board Member Levy is right. I think a lot more people will want to participate. And like you pointed out in your presentation, there's a huge difference between getting a bag of a few meals and a hot meal off a truck. So, yeah.
Currently, we are averaging between 150 and 194 meals delivered on the east side, and that's just been since the start of school. And we are ranging an average let me look, I've just switched this over to average real quick.
And that's per
average
week?
of 85 meals on the west side. And that is in comparison, the high school, we're serving anywhere between 30 and 50. Some of the elementary schools are up to 200 and 400. So we are seeing, but we are highly, encouraging that delivery option now to make sure that we're getting those meals. And I think it has become a much more popular option as families are returning to work and trying to get to sites, and the weather's turning cooler. I think this is going to be a huge undertaking in what we can do, and we would still be able to utilize other vehicles if people did not want a hot meal. So this is not the only way that we can deliver meals. I don't want this to be perceived as the only way, and I also don't want us to be stuck in how we're serving now versus, we are hoping to return our students to school and be able to use these in our schools to make sure that we are getting options to people. This did not come only because of COVID and our outbreak. This is something that we can deliver to Head Start and the Boys and Girls Club. We deliver meals even when we are not in a distance learning. So some of our schools don't have a full kitchen and we have to deliver meals such as BLA, things like that. This gives us those opportunities. So I don't want people to be stuck in the thought process that this is only coming about because we have this excess fund balance and because we're in distance. We just saw a huge opportunity. The excess fund balance is the reason that we are looking at this, but it has been we've been looking at it for over a year before COVID was even on our radar, that this would be something that would be hugely beneficial to our community and to our students. So I just caution about planning everything around our current environment, that isn't the only lens I want to look at this opportunity through.
Thank you so much.
I'm sorry, Board Member Anderson, I missed you. Go ahead, please.
So I agree with what Amy and Megan have already said. Me personally, I would like to see more of the numbers and how that we're going to actually, what routes we're actually going to do with these, just so that we can see what we could possibly expect out of this. Instead of just kind of okay, well, we have an idea, but we're just going to push it along because there's this deadline where we do have a little bit of time where I would like to get more numbers and actually be able to see how we're going to execute this.
Okay, thank you. Board Member Wong hasn't spoken yet, so I'm going to give him the opportunity before we go to Board Member Levy.
Yes, I would agree with the consensus here at this point as far as, the people have spoken so far. I think that, when we brought this to the board, it was, I think that now we've got to the point, I understand and respect that Ms. Armstrong and Ms. Smith and Mr. Axton, you don't want to put together a lot of information before it gets to the board and have it shot down. I would hope that, now we're having an idea in our situation much different now than it will be likely in the spring or next year, that you should be able to hopefully put together some data that can say, okay, here's a pro forma as far as what we could anticipate using this for and how it will be utilized throughout the year, whether it's an actual route that would be, I would hate to have you put something down to say, yes, we're going to live by this, but I don't think we need to do that. But I think that it would be nice to have more information to be able to say, yes, here's what our plan is for this, and maybe reaching out to other staff members throughout the district to see who else is going to be involved in this, so there's more of a comprehensive plan.
Thank you. Board Member Levy?
Thank you. My issues of concern have already been addressed by other board members.
Thank you. So we do, yes, Board Member Wong.
One other question, is there, if we delay this by 1 month, Ms. Armstrong, is that, I mean, I'm assuming that's not significant, like we're saying push it off until January or something like that. Is that accurate?
No, that's fine. We can gather the data and do we need to represent this at committee, or can we bring this back to board since it was already approved by committee?
I think it could possibly come back to the full board since the discussions kind of expanded outside of the committee, unless the board would directly send it back to committee.
Okay, thank you. We will work on that updated presentation.
Okay.
With how we've been trying to do, we've been trying to keep things to committees and then bring it to the full board, so then it's more efficient for us, right? And our committee meeting actually meets before the board meeting, so if the time frame works out for them, could they bring it to the committee first so that we can kind of hash out some of the questions and kind of streamline it for the board meeting that next month?
If that's what the board would like to do, then I suggest we vote down the amendment, vote down the motion, and then a new motion can be made to send it back to committee if that's what the board would like. Okay. So we do have an amendment on the table to add the estimated amount of $410,000 to the original motion. Are there any other questions or discussion regarding that amended motion? Yes, Ms. Armstrong?
Sorry, I just wanted to get one clarification. If we're talking about bringing this back to the committee, the next Planning and Budget Committee is the 6th, and that will be the committee that will be presenting the preliminary budget, and that could make for a very long meeting, and that only gives me a week to compile this data. So I don't think realistically that I would be prepared to bring it on the 6th, nor I don't want to speak for the board, but I don't know that you want to have all of that on one meeting.
Board Member Levy?
Thank you, Mrs. Armstrong, for bringing up that point. I appreciate you considering our schedules and our workload. I would be comfortable with hearing this before the Planning and Budget Committee on November 3rd.
Vice President Miller?
Well, now my question seems off topic. I actually just wanted to clarify with Ms. Armstrong. Did you feel like you have clarity on what we were looking for so that you're able to compile data? Like, did you want like an actual list kind of, or I just want to make sure that you feel comfortable with that we're all on the same page, I guess was my question. But if you want to wait and figure out this committee thing first, that's fine.
I think I understand you're looking for a more specific plan of how we are going to implement delivery of meals to families and the metrics we're going to be using to analyze the success of the program, and how we will also incorporate that with students. Is that an accurate assessment of what you're looking for?
I mean, that works for me. Board members, anybody else want to weigh in?
Go ahead, Board Member Wong.
I guess, how much detail are we looking for in this? Because I think that, a lot of this, they could spend hours, and I don't think that's necessary. I think that we would like to have a plan, and know that it's going to be a fluid plan at that. I mean, we're going to be changing things out throughout the year, especially under the COVID situation, and knowing that once we come out of this, it's going to look a lot different. So I would really, I respect their time and also the time of the year, especially for finance, and I would like to have information. But yes, we want details, but let's not get real deep here. That'd be my suggestion.
Okay, it sounds like we're talking about the next part, so let's deal with the amendment and the motion first before we talk about sending it back to committee. And then Board Member Levy, I'll get to you after we dispose of these motions. So the amendment is to add the amount of approximately $410,000 to the original motion. Any other questions or discussion regarding that amendment? Seeing none, all in favor of the amendment, please say aye. All in favor, or I'm sorry, all opposed, say nay.
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 All right, the amendment fails. So now the original motion is to approve the purchase of 2 food trucks out of Fund 50. Any other questions or discussion regarding this motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. All opposed? Nay.
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 All right, the motion fails. Okay, so those 2 motions have been disposed of. Board Member Levy.
I always like to plan for the worst and hope for the best. So for me, the main selling point for this truck is that we can deliver hot meals to our students within the context of distance/virtual learning. And I completely understand that we're not going to always be in distance/virtual learning. But as a part of the report back, I would assume that at least 80% of our kids would be interested in utilizing this service. So a route that is devised, I would be interested in seeing how one truck could make it to 80% of our kids on the east side, and the same for the west side. And then also you kind of, I believe you mentioned, if I heard you correctly, that the truck could deliver from 8 to 3. And in the original presentation to the committee, one of the main selling points was that we could deliver a hot lunch, and that some of our families struggle with the utility to provide a hot lunch. So if we're delivering at 8, that's not going to help a kid have a hot lunch. And if we're delivering at 3, then the kid has missed lunch. So just if you could keep those things in mind and do the logistics with, I would say, 80% capacity.
I will use those considerations in my details.
All right, so is there a motion to send this back to the Planning and Budget Committee?
Can I ask a clarifying question? Is this for the October or the November? Remind me. October? Did Ms. Armstrong say that that was enough time?
No.
So then we don't want to make that
It would have to be. It would have to be November. My recommendation would be to send it back to Planning and Budget, and then that would allow Dr. Keyser and Ms. Armstrong to do the work and then bring it when they feel like they have the information that the board requires.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion then to take the food truck proposal for the amount of $410,000 back to committee, and I'll just leave it there.
A friendly amendment, could you please add the Planning and Budget Committee?
Oh, I'm so sorry, yeah, for the Planning and Budget Committee.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to send the food truck purchase back to the Planning and Budget Committee. Are there any questions or discussion regarding that motion? Board Member Levy?
My assumption is that this is for the November meeting because the October would be too soon, but I just wanted to clarify.
That is correct. So the motion is open-ended so that once they have the information ready, they can work with Board Member Wong and get it on the agenda for the Planning and Budget.
So theoretically, it could be the October meeting?
Probably not because of the budget presentation that's happening in October.
Okay, I don't know if we want to amend amendments, but that's fine. Thank you.
No, we just sent it back to planning and budget. We didn't put a timeline. So it can go to planning and budget once it's ready and once there's room on the agenda. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of sending the purchase of the food trucks back to planning and budget committee, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. So it will go back to the planning and budget committee once the information has been gathered. The other item pulled off is the credit recovery program renewal. Board Member Levy.
Thank you, Board President. My only concern was, unless I missed something in the initial proposal, we are moving forward with Apex Learning at a cost of $59,940, as well as Ingenuity for $30,000. And I know that especially in the context of distance/virtual learning, that there has been a push to have universal platforms. It just kind of makes life easier. So again, unless I missed something in that initial proposal, I'm not sure of why we are moving forward with two different platforms, because there didn't seem to be a benefit of one over the other. And then also the fiscal responsibility portion comes in. If we can do what we need to do for students with one, and I'm fine whether it's the one for $59,940 or the one for $30,000, but it doesn't make sense to me to have both of them without a very good reason.
So I know Mr. Breitsmeister is not on tonight, but in my conversations with him and from a bit of the presentation, both platforms are still being looked at. The ideal would be to go with one platform. The reality is that each platform has its own approach. Some students, particularly right now, students in BLA are accessing the Ingenuity platform better than Apex. I know Apex is being used more readily at the high school. That seems to align better with the students there. My ideal would be if we can't get to one platform because it would benefit some students but not all students, my expectation would be that we would tailor the subscription to meet the needs of the specific population. Right now we have it at a point for a pilot purpose or continuation of what started off as a pilot until we could actually get to a point where we know exactly, can we get down to one platform, or if not, exactly what is our level of usage so that we can be fiscally responsible in what we use. So that's the rationale for the quotes. And I know that Ms. Peltz is here if there are questions in terms of using the Apex at the high school level. But that's the reason why it's being presented as this.
All right, Vice President Miller.
Thank you. So two things. First, I'd like to make a motion to extend our meeting time by 30 minutes so we can complete the agenda items.
Is there a second?
Almost.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to extend the meeting by 30 minutes. Are there any other questions or discussion regarding that motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we have extended for 30 minutes, and then I believe you had a question.
I do, thank you. I just had a comment, actually. So I feel like I understand, Board Member Levy, I understand your concerns. It was my understanding that at that presentation, like Dr. Kieser was describing, that you've got some students benefiting different, for different reasons from both platforms. And I thought the goal was to kind of complete the pilot this year because last year it was cut short due to COVID. And that the expectation was that the following year they would do the rest to adopt one platform. So I would just say from a classroom teacher perspective, I know that we often have to use different tools to meet the needs of different learners. And since the understanding is that they're just gonna pilot this for the year with the hope of choosing just one platform, that's why I'm personally in favor of passing the proposal.
Board Member Levy?
Thank you. If I am remembering the presentation correctly, the pilot has been going on for the past year. And that this new phase would be a 2-year commitment. Again, if I'm remembering the presentation correctly. So it's 2 years, not 1 year. And from everything that I've heard, it seems to be preference and not an instructional reason to have both platforms. So again, unless I'm missing something, I'm really not interested in spending at minimum an extra $30,000 or at maximum an extra $60,000 for a preference to continue to test 2 when it's been tested for a year if there's not an instructional reason for going with both platforms.
Board Member Wong?
Looking back at the minutes from the meeting and remembering the discussion at that point, this would not be a 2-year commitment. This would be a 1-year commitment. And Mr. Briesmeister had mentioned at the meeting that exactly what Board Member Miller had mentioned is that the first year was cut short. And I'm reading, he did not want to have a disruption between staff and the students themselves for the next year. After this year, the goal is to be targeting one program at that point, and that was the main reason why to go with a 1-year commitment is to not lock us in for a 2-year period of time.
Vice President Miller?
Okay, thanks. I was just going to ask Dr. Keiser if you could clarify about the 2-year commitment thing because I couldn't remember if I goofed that up. And if there, I thought I recall hearing an instructional reasons, but I might be wrong, mistaken. Do we have some instructional purpose for both platforms, or was it more just like a preference because teachers were used to it?
So each platform has its own kind of dashboard in terms of students who are engaged in it, and then not only pacing but completion rates and stuff like that. So yes, there are what in following up with Mr. Briesmeister, and he had adopted from Mr. Graymont, who was running this last year, that there was stronger completion rates and stronger student engagement from the Ingenuity platform for students who were at BLA. And then the rigor and completion rates and so forth actually flip-flopped in terms of the high school. They were seeing stronger support. I know specifically in the math department, they use Apex quite a bit as a supplement to the core instruction. So there is definitely an instructional component in addition to the credit recovery piece. Ideally, we definitely want to get down to one platform. I would be remiss if I would say that there's a possibility that at the end of this, we might be at a crossroads where one building has, if we were to choose just one platform and lock ourselves into one platform, we might be supporting one group of students and not supporting another group of students as much as we possibly could have. I absolutely get the fiscal responsibility. And so if we find ourselves in a position like that, we would want to make sure that we are being fiscally responsible by making sure that we know exactly how many licenses that we would need to support, and even if it was a little bit under, so that we would be in. The nice thing about online platforms is that you can usually call up the vendors and they can add additional licenses on a as needed basis for a minimal amount of cost. But I did pull up the contracts. The contracts are for the 2021 school year. So this amount would just be for this school year.
Thank you very much.
Okay, is there anything, any other questions, discussion, or a motion? Again, there is if you click on the item on the consent agenda, there is a suggested motion listed there.
I move approval to move to approve the purchase and renewal of the Apex Learning and Ingenuity for the 2021 school year in the amount of $59,940 and $30,000.
Is there a second? I'll second the motion. So we have a motion and a second to approve. Let me bring it back up so I can read it. To approve the purchase and renewal of Apex Learning and Ingenuity for the 2021 school year in the amount of $59,940 and $30,000. Any other questions or discussion regarding the motion?
No, but could we have a roll call vote, please?
Absolutely. Roll call, please.
Anderson,
Aye.
Delgado,
Aye.
Jacobs,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Levy,
Nay.
Miller,
Aye.
Wong.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you very much. All right, so that brings us to business agenda action items. The renaming of Beloit Memorial High School Natatorium. Yep. Okay. So on last Monday, the naming committee convened to discuss whether or not to rename the Beloit Memorial High School Natatorium after a longtime teacher and boys swim coach, Richard Vogel, who retired after 34 years. I will tell you, it was one of the shortest committee meetings I've ever witnessed in my life. But on the committee was Mrs. Pels, the principal, Ms. Herford, the principal from Merrill, Mr. Dave Lupke, Mr. Booker Street, board members Wong and Delgado. Mary Ellen Fuentes is a teacher from Todd, who were all on the committee. Am I missing anyone? Okay. And I was there just to get the meeting started, and then the committee elected Mr. Dave Lupke to be the chair, and he took over after we got after he was elected and got the meeting started. And the committee unanimously voted to recommend renaming the Beloit Memorial High School Natatorium the Richard Vogel Natatorium. So that is the item before the board coming to us from the committee. Questions, discussion, or a motion?
I move approval of renaming the Memorial High School Natatorium to the Richard Vogel Natatorium.
I'll
And
second that.
I second.
Wanting to thank, right, do we need to thank and dismiss the naming committee for their service?
Thank you. So we'll clarify that the motion is to rename the Beloit Memorial High School Natatorium after to the Richard Vogel Natatorium. Thank and dismiss the naming committee for their service. And we have a motion and a second to do so. Any other questions or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
All opposed? All right, the motion carries unanimously, which brings us to future board meeting dates. So let me click on that. Okay. So we will have our board goals workshop on Tuesday, the 29th we have to start 6:15 p.m. Planning and Budget Committee will meet Tuesday, October 6th at 5:15 p.m. and that will be a heavy budget meeting for any of you who are interested at home. Oversight and Finance will meet Tuesday, October 13th, the time to be determined. Policy and Personnel will meet on Tuesday the 13th also, time to be determined. There will be a special Policy and Personnel Committee meeting on Tuesday, October 27th, time to be determined. We'll have a Governance Committee also meeting on October 27th, time to be determined. Our business meeting will be October 27th at 7 p.m. And then our board meeting and our public budget hearing is scheduled for Wednesday, October 28th at 5 p.m. Brings us to adjournment. After having completed all of the business of the meeting, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting. Any other questions or unfinished business? Seeing none, all in favor of adjourning, please say aye.
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 Any opposed and wanting to stay here by yourself for the rest of the night, please say nay. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.